President of Columbia University in New York City. A lot of people forget about his time in academia. He chose academia instead of going into defense industries because he felt that was going to taint his career. If he was working for a defense contractor, making a lot of money, doing very little work. So he came up with the notion it would be great to be the president of a small college in a rural environment. So what happens? He gets a phone call from Columbia University in Manhattan, in New York City. But he accepts the job. But after 2 to 3 years, it appears that he's getting a little tired of it, and he's starting to think about retirement. And he and Mamie have had a lot of connections to Gettysburg over the years, and they want a farm. This was a rundown dairy farm when they came here in the fall of 1950, a rundown dairy farm. I know today it's got a very beautiful park-like setting. But the Eisenhowers come here, they see a lot of potential, and they look to the west, and they see these beautiful views of South Mountain. That is the biggest selling point of this farm, are the views to the west. Another thing the Eisenhowers liked, and if you came by bus, you already experienced it, and that's the length of the main driveway. From where you entered off of Millerstown Road to the front door of the house, it's a half a mile. The Eisenhowers see privacy with that long driveway. And then Ike keeps talking about soil conservation. He just wants to get a piece of land and make the soil better before he dies. He sees a soil project on this farm. And also you need to keep in mind his kid brother, Milton Eisenhower, is the president of Penn State University.
Not Johns
in
Hopkins?
1950. What's that, sir?
Not Johns Hopkins?
That's the second. He's Kansas State first, Penn State, and then Johns Hopkins. So Penn State has always had a very good agricultural extension program. Ike's going to get them involved in improving the soil of the farm. So the Eisenhowers signed the contract to buy the farm in the fall of 1950. Now let me tell you a little bit about the details here. It was 189 acres. So if you came by car, you cross that little bridge there. That's the beginning of the 189 acres, and it's on both sides all the way out to Millerstown Road. So 189 acres included in the price, and I'll get to the price in a minute. You get what appeared to be a solid red brick farmhouse, typical Gettysburg farmhouse, about 2,000 square feet. You get several outbuildings. You get a beautiful Pennsylvania bank barn. If you haven't had a chance to see it, go inside and see that barn, built in the 1880s. You get a whole herd of Holstein dairy cows, the black and white dairy cows. You get 500 chickens, and you get farm equipment, a couple tractors, all for the price tag of $42,000 US dollars. 42,000. Okay, but those are 1950 dollars. So you've got to go to Google, put in $42,000 1950 dollars. What's it worth in 2022? And you'll get a figure of about $550,000. So imagine today knocking on a farmer's door in Adams County, Pennsylvania, and telling that farmer you'll give him $550,000 for his 189 acres. You don't need any of that other stuff, just the land. It's not going to happen today. Land prices have gone up dramatically. Now, a lot of people come here and they assume since Ike was a 5-star general, his last job in the U.S. Army was Chief of Staff. He took General Marshall's place after World War II. That a guy like that surely's got a nice nest egg, big pot of cash. This is what Ike said. It's January 1948. He's getting ready to leave the U.S. Army. He's going to head off to Columbia University by the summer. The first thing that he and Mamie need is a car. He's been chauffeured around for years. That's a perk of being a 5-star general. Now it's time to go on the open market and buy his own car. So Ike and Mamie go out and buy what he called a respectable Chrysler. He takes out his checkbook, writes a check for that respectable Chrysler, does the math in his checkbook, and finds out the balance is approaching zero. And he points to that brand new car, and he tells Mamie Eisenhower that's all he's got to show for 36 years in the U.S. Army. He has no wealth. The wealth came from writing a book. So January 1948, he reports to Columbia. By summer 1948. In about 5 months, he will produce Crusade in Europe. It's his memoirs of World War II. It's still in print today. He has a choice. He could take royalties. If he took royalties, some Eisenhower would still be getting a check today. but he decides he wants cash advance. He needs money. So he will net approximately $500,000, $1948. That's the cash advance after he pays 25% capital gains tax. So if you go back to Google, $500,000, $1948 is about $5 to $6 million today. For the first time in Dwight David Eisenhower's life, he's got financial security. He wants this farm in Gettysburg, and then you're going to find out he's going to put a lot of money into the farm. So the Eisenhower signed the contract in the fall of 1950, and within 2 weeks, everything changes. President Harry Truman calls Ike and offers him to be the first Supreme Commander of NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, in the news almost every day. At that time, it's based in Paris, France, not Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Today, it's based in Brussels, Belgium. So what do you think Ike says to President Truman? Yes, sir, Mr. President. He puts the uniform back on with his 5 stars. He takes an extended leave of absence from Columbia University, and he finds a friend, a retired Brigadier General, Art Nevins, and his wife, Ann, to move into the old farmhouse and be his farm manager, and then Ike and Mamie head off to Paris. When Ike is in Paris, both Democrats and Republicans have been trying to recruit Ike since 1945, since after the war. In 1948, when it didn't look very good for President Truman to be reelected, he offered Ike the top of the ticket, and he would move down to the VP. But Eisenhower was not ready in 1948. Even in 1952, he said that he did not seek the presidency was seeking him. He gives 2 reasons why he ran as a Republican in 1952. Number 1, no Republican had won the presidency since 1928, when Herbert Hoover won. And Ike feels that the 2-party system is a good check and balance on each other, and if a Republican does not win in 1952, the 2-party system is going to collapse. Second reason is the most important reason. The leading Republican candidate in 1952 is Senator Robert Taft of Ohio. He's the son of a former president, William Howard Taft. And Robert Taft is an isolationist. He thinks the oceans are going to protect us. He's learned nothing from World War I and World War II. Ike thinks whether the United States wants it or not, we are a leader in the world. We have responsibilities in the world. He is the head of NATO at that time. It is a bitter contest. Primary, 1952 Republican primary is bitter, and ultimately Ike is going to win. And then Adlai Stevenson, who Ike's going to be up against in the general election, he's like Ike. He's an internationalist. He believes in responsibility, but he thinks that the New Deal has gone too far. So ultimately, Ike is going to win the election in 1952, and in January 20th, 1953, Eisenhower is inaugurated president of the United States. At that time, Ike and Mamie decide it's time to deal with this farm in Gettysburg. They've had this farm for over 3 years. It's time to deal with it. Ike's a little preoccupied at that time, so Mamie's going to be the project manager. And what's going to happen is she hires a contractor. Contractor starts looking at the old farmhouse, comes back and says, it's much older than you think and it's ready to fall down. It turns out that most of the old farmhouse was a brick veneer covering up a log cabin that dates back to about 1750, when this was the frontier. So the Eisenhower salvaged only one small piece of the old farmhouse, and that's the piece right there with the rough-looking bricks between the downspouts with the 2 little eyebrow windows. That's all the Eisenhower salvage, and then they built a brand new house around it. So this stone that's behind me, you may think that's older, that's new construction, 1953 to March of 1955, and then all the brickwork to the left and in the back was all new construction. You can tell the bricks are nice and smooth, where the older bricks were cut by hand. Machine cut versus hand cut bricks. The Eisenhowers painted white to make it all blend together. So March 1955, everything's done. If you're not aware, Camp David, the presidential retreat, named for Ike's grandson, David Eisenhower, is 20 miles directly south of here. So during this construction phase, the Eisenhowers leave the White House on Friday afternoon to go to Camp David to relax. That's the main reason. When this is finished, the Eisenhowers will travel the extra 20 miles to be in the only house that they ever owned in their lives. Everything inside the house is Eisenhower. It's not government furniture. This is where Ike wants to come and relax. He also came here to recover. During his presidency, he had a massive heart attack. He had abdominal surgery, what we would call Crohn's disease today, and he had a stroke, a minor stroke, during his second term. Every time he leaves the hospital, Gettysburg is where he comes. After his heart attack, that tiny little office that you're going to see in here, that was the temporary White House for about 7 weeks of American history at the very end of 1955. Another way that Eisenhower uses the farm is to bring foreign leaders. So from Camp David, it's only a helicopter flight of 10 minutes. In 1957, Ike is the first American president to fly by helicopter. So 10 minutes from Camp David to the farm, Ike brings the foreign leader, has the Secret Service meets them with golf carts. They go over to Farm 2, shows off his Black Angus show cows, comes back over here. If the grandchildren are here, he's going to show off his grandchildren. They end up in the sun porch. Could be a little bit of scotch, bourbon, vodka, who's ever here involved. And the most famous of the world leaders to come to the farm was Nikita Khrushchev of the Soviet Union. He came here in September 1959. Now, after President Kennedy is inaugurated, that's Ike's official retirement day. So that's January 20th, 1961. Eisenhower's got about 7 good retirement years. So this place had gone from a weekend getaway to now it's the retirement home for the Eisenhowers. In 1967, Ike's health is starting to fail. He and Mamie decide on their legacy. They donate this farm to the National Park Service. Mamie ends up living here. Ike dies in 1969. Mamie lives here till 1979, 10 more years. After her death, it's already National Park. The only thing that was not settled in 1979 when Mamie died was what's inside the house, the contents, what you're going to see. The son, John Eisenhower, the father of the 4 Eisenhower grandchildren, donated most of what was in the house to the National Park Service. The nicer stuff inside he puts on loan to the National Park Service. Money was raised to give him a nice check. The family took very little out of the house. What you're going to see is 98% authenticity. This is the real stuff when we go inside. So these are the ground rules. No flash photography when we go inside. No drinks. I see a few drinks. That's going to have to be pitched. There's a trash can up here. When you see a barrier, don't go over the barrier. Don't reach underneath the barrier or you're going to set off the alarms. And when you go upstairs, use the banister. Don't touch the original wallpaper of state seals on the left-hand side. So we're definitely going to have to divide them up. I think we're going to be fairly quick going through the house. So I'm thinking I see troop here. Right here will be the cutoff. You folks here, you're going to go in first with me, and I'll be back shortly. I promise. I'm not going to leave you. Now, the only thing I'm going to ask of you is not to wander off. Because sometimes people wander off. I come back for you, and I bring you inside, and I shut the door. They get mad. Okay? Okay, so right here, troops, let's go.